Hello, humane marketers. Sarah Znekrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Jen Freeman, welcome back to the Humane Marketing Podcast. It's good to hang out with you as always.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Thank you. You've been on the show before and we talked about human design. And if people want to go back to that episode, it's episode 194. So humane.marketing/HM194. This way we take it a bit farther and further and deeper into, not so much about the different types, but more about the centers, specifically defined and undefined centers. So again, if this is all kind of like complete weird language to you, it's probably best that you first listen to episode 194 so that you understand a little bit of the basics of human design. So Jen, why don't you explain for people who are relatively new to human design what the centers are, that we're going to be talking about today?
So the centers in human design, they're a synthesis of many different systems. So they do reflect the chakras, they do reflect the Kabbalah tree of life. They go all the way down to genetic code and organs. So when you look at a human design chart, it's a 2D representation of a 3D lived experience. And so the centers themselves are probably the simplest way to say it. They're portals for one, because when they're open, it's where you're receiving information from the world. And then where they're fixed, it's where you're putting it out. I like to think of it as a radio station. So 101 Sarah, going out, never ending would be where your centers are fixed, where your energy is consistent and you're radiating that energy into your environment. Where they're open is where you're receiving you're receiving my 101 Jen, to get into yours. So being with that constant interplay that's always happening, but this is why it's so important to know your centers, which one are defined, because that's consistent, that's your radio station, and which ones are open that are receiving, because you're being conditioned there, which we'll talk more about, I'm sure.
I'm just going to hold up for people who are watching on YouTube. I'm holding up this this chart that kind of shows the centers. So you mentioned the chakras. So yes, there's the chakras, but there's a few more, right? What's in addition to the chakras?
Because that's part of like the Kabbalah tree of life, for example, if people are familiar with what that looks like. So it's a similar recognition that there are these portals of energy that are coming through us and to us, right? So, and that's where the G center is unique. And that's that heart that you just showed them in the center. That is what's called the magnetic monopole. And it's basically what creates the illusion of a separate self and sets direction so that there's the apparent sense of Sarah-ness, right? Right. So, and again, human design is very deep. So I'm very aware with your listeners that probably every sentence we say could create more questions in their mind. And I just want them to know you're right on track. This is the nature of this. It's a very deep subject, a lifelong inquiry, really. As Sarah and I both have caught the bug. I've had the bug for 23 years. Sarah, I think you've had it 10 maybe.
Yeah, but not as deep as you.
Yeah. So, but just knowing that if it does raise questions, it's okay. It's great, actually. It'll take you into wonderful places. But so we're going to both do our best to keep it as simple so you can apply it right away as possible.
So you talked a little bit already about centers, one of them uh, being the ones where you know who you are, and the other ones being the ones where you receive energy. So the open centers are the ones where you receive other people's
Yeah.
message and energy, and the
Yeah.
defined or the would you call them closed centers? The defined centers are the ones where you can tap into because that's where you know who you are. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
So something called the neutrino stream, which is an infinitesimally small particle of mass traveling just under the speed of light. So the defined centers, so basically we are all being inundated with these tiny, tiny particles all the time, millions of them per second. So where the centers are defined, it's where you have consistent conditioning by the planets of neutrinos. Okay, so it's you're still being conditioned, but it's all the time consistent your entire life. That's what's happening. Whereas where it's white is where you're both being conditioned by planets, by people, by animals, by plants, by like it's really the felt sense of it is that basically it's like the where the centers are fixed, it's like the furniture. You never really think about it. It's just there, it's consistent for you all the time. Whereas where they're open, it's much more like the television, like flashy images, colors, lights, and our attention is very naturally drawn to the TV over the furniture. Unless you're a very, I guess, meditative person who likes to stare at your couch, that most of us are going to be drawn to those open centers.
Mm.
So part of how we learn about ourselves is we see our defined centers. So let's say that I have a defined emotional center, which is a center of authority. It means that I need at least 24 hours to make decisions. It means my emotions move on a wave, meaning I have a lot of feelings. They're data points. So if I don't understand that about myself, and I don't understand that someone with an open emotional center would be experiencing my emotions, I would be conditioning them with my
Mm.
emotion. So
So
if I
I
didn't,
actually have an undefined solar plexus.
so that would be where my emotions, you would be feeling them. And this is so wherever you're open, you will be feeling the conditioning twice as big, basically. So
Mm.
often we think we're the opposite of what we are. So like someone with an open emotional center can feel like, oh, I'm so emotional, but really they're feeling all of the emotions around them,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that they don't have their own, but it's not the same thing. It's a much cooler experience than the emotions are very hot. So if you have it fixed, you just naturally have a lot of heat moving through your
Hmm.
system. So the essence of this, and again, Noe is always with human design, the challenge is to essentialize it for people to apply, is that if you look at your chart, you get a reading, you start to understand, you're incredibly empowered to understand who you are in any environment, how you influence people, how you affect them, and also how you're influenced and affected. It changes everything, everything. So, and that's something, just a very quick anecdotal evidence. I have a totally open heart, ego, will center. So part of what that means is that I really need to do things at the right time. I'm not here to will things, right? Where if somebody, 30% of the population has that fixed, it's healthy for their heart because it's about the heart center. But when it's open, it actually hurts your heart to try to will things into being, right?
Mm.
And so I
Hmm.
was in the financial industry years ago, which was 100% commission. I was in the States, in the mortgage business in California, in a very, very competitive market with the broker's license, which is like, my God, it was so painful. It was so painful. And I finally used this tool to understand I was totally in the wrong place.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly how understanding who we are and how we're wired helps us then, choose the right career path, but also the right business
Yes, the
plan
right.
and the right business module and
Yes.
marketing tools, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
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 So would you say that, like, I think there's some kind of misconception maybe about open centers. Like people think they're kind of scared about open centers, maybe because, yeah, tell us why. What's the fear behind these open centers?
Yeah, so the thing about the open centers is well, if we basically just go with it, all human beings seem to tend to want to be in control. And so
Right,
the open centers are where they are not in control. By
right,
definition, it's like they're not in control, right? It's like this is where different influences, different information. But the positive side of this is it's where you're here to be wise in those centers. It's like you're constantly having wine tasting of all these different possibilities. So when you are defined, you're just it. You're not actually wise about it. You just are it. But
right,
where you're open is where you get to taste all these different people's fields and energies. And so, like, again, going back to the open heart example. So I'm here to be wise about what is truly of value. And that is a very big difference versus trying to prove I am valuable, which is
hmm,
where the people have it fixed are trying to prove that they're valuable. And again, it's correct for them, right? They're supposed to get out there and be like, woo, especially in the States, we're so very sales oriented. So, they succeed very well in those environments. But if you understand, so like even right now, sitting with you, I feel completely grounded and confident that what we're talking about has great wisdom and great application. But it has nothing to do with me. It's
right.
I'm just expressing what I've taste tested and learned, and then ideally I want them to go apply it, right?
Mm.
I've
So
tasted he goes, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, this is good. So I have this um, spreadsheet in front of me where I basically looked at my undefined centers, and then I, given your like we did a class together that you taught, and given that information, I basically sat down and said, here's what I'm selling because it's placed in the undefined centers, right? So,
Yes,
for example, I have an undefined heart and ego. And so, what I'm selling is worthiness or belonging to community or adaptation in times of shock or ethics. So, these kind of things, because that's what I'm constantly learning because of my undefined heart and ego, that's exactly what I'm here to, give and share and sell. So
yes,
that's, would you say that's an applied example
yeah,
of how we can, yeah, tap into these open centers?
yes, and really harness their power. It's like in a way realizing what major you're in university. You're like,
Mm,
oh, I'm a biologist. Right. This whole time I was trying to, be a Wall Street or do business analysis, but I'm actually meant to be over here. And the sense of relief, the sense
mhm.
of, oh, it all makes sense. And the sense of not putting pressure on yourself anymore to be something that you're not is
Right.
so big. So like I have a chart of an entrepreneur as an example. So much of my design, I'm designed to get out there, do stuff. But I know that's my chart. I know that's my design. But I'm here, so I have a lot of energy basically. And I have the gate of power connected to my throat. So I know when I speak that it will be heard, right? One way or the other. I can't say if they're gonna like what they're hearing, but it's gonna be heard. Whereas if someone does not have a fixed throat center, then what that means is they don't have consistent access to their voice being heard. So they often will have lots of stories, like self-talk stories, right? About, oh, people don't love me, or they don't like me, or they're not listening to me. But really, on a mechanics level, they just don't have a fixed throat. So in that case, they could learn if they have something important to communicate, maybe write an email, write a letter, that written communication could be received much better than spoken, right?
Mm, hmm.
And then
Yeah.
paradoxically, sometimes people with open voices are so wise about the nature of speech that they become like incredible speakers. So but it depends on how what they're telling themselves about it,
Right.
right? Like, oh, no one listens. It's really it's so literal and physical and mechanical. That's the other thing. It's yeah, the throat is a big, big topic. A big topic.
And it's a big topic in marketing as well, because the throat is your voice and how you are going to be heard. And so understanding what your role is in this lifetime and how you're supposed to be sharing that voice, well, that's kind of a big deal, right? And
Oh
if
yeah.
you're forcing yourself to do one thing, like speaking on stage, but then you find out after a reading, well, that's not exactly what's going to be easy for you. It's still doable probably, but it's not going to be easy
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and to your point, I'm in the process, like we chatted about it. This inspiration came to me. I'm workshopping it, but my current name is the current newsletter. So I have one of my main gates is basically the now. I'm literally the voice of the now. So this is part of me using my voice of like, I'm just so aware of the now. And I have a background with astrology and cosmologies, and I'm very drawn to create a newsletter to help people in real time be with, especially as things are changing so radically, that there's an underlying support that they can lean into, the quality of time. There's a consistency in the quality of time. And it's straight up, it's part of me being like, I am the voice of the now. That's all I ever talk about to anyone all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's cool because I just feel like, all right, just try it. You've been doing it for years anyway. Why not just do it? And so so I feel a sense of
It
confidence.
gives
It
you these insights, right? Yeah,
does. It
yeah,
really does.
yeah.
Yes.
I want to
Yes.
take another example from my what I written down. Oh, as you know, I have a undefined head, and so a big thing of what I'm selling is inspiration, right? Is change,
Yeah.
inspiration to do things
Yes.
differently. So yeah, understanding that and just saying, because people kind of wonder sometimes, family members, like, what are you doing? Like, you're writing books, like, how's that make any money? Or I'm like, well, that's my role in this lifetime, is to inspire and bring about change and talk about change. And so
Yeah.
just, and it's not always easy to accept that either, to say, is this like what I'm doing? Like, shouldn't I be going back to, selling LinkedIn profile reviews and things like that? But I was
Right.
not happy in that role, right?
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
also a 5/1, as you know, and so it's all about, spreading the message to a large audience. And so
Yes.
understanding that and going, okay, so yeah, I'll just accept that role and this is what I do, is kind of like this big relief and big understanding as well.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And just I want to point out to your listeners that part of what Sarah's talking about right now is that over the years we've known each other, is that so being a 5/1 means part of her role is one to many. She's here to amplify messages to larger groups of people. Where when she was selling the LinkedIn profile, that was one to one, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was not the right use where you can feel, and it just is off. It's like you're wearing like shoes a size too small with a pebble in it, it just feels wrong. So and that's the thing also, like Sarah just expressed, that accepting your design does not mean, oh no, I guess I just have to like, oh, it's right. It's not like you're settling, like you're like, oh, I had these dreams and now I'm just going to settle for my design. It's like, no, your design, the more you align with it, then totally unexpected synchronicities and possibilities open up, things you could never have imagined, right?
Right.
And that's part of the mystery of all of this,
Yeah.
and as Sarah knows, I have a 20 plus years of Qigong background, which is working with Qi, for those who don't know it, working with energy. And this just completely maps to Qigong as well. You have to know your piece of the puzzle, as my teacher would say. If you know your piece of the puzzle, then you can fall into the whole effortlessly. But if you're
Mm.
fighting your piece of the puzzle and you're like struggling to be something else, you can't actually connect into all the resources, clients. It's so paradoxical, but it's like the more you can accept the limitation, the more you can thrive.
Mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. There's another thing that I wrote down here is that I'm selling to twos. So
Yeah.
that, how does that have to do, what does that have to do with the centers, or is that something else? I can't remember how we got to that.
Yeah. Me neither, actually. The lines, that's in lines and profile stuff, and that's styles of learning. That's so it's not actually, it's not the centers. It's
It's
like
not
a,
the centers. Okay. It's not a
yeah,
deduction from the centers. Okay.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
more like a, well, to be, just for those whose minds might be like, huh? So there's gates, and those gates are fixed in a hexagram from the I Ching. The I Ching has 6 lines. So part of what Sarah is saying is that, like, so let's say she has 53 and 54 as her sun and earth, right? So if it's 0.2, it means the second line of the hexagram. So it's incredibly precise and specific and very helpful. But in the twos, just to also complete, they are projecting outward, but they don't actually understand other people can see them. They're kind of very mysterious, the twos, and so in a lot of ways, Sarah, with the 5 of like, she's holding up the flag of like, hey, I've got answers over here. So the twos could be like, can someone actually help me? And of course, many of us will be going towards the 5, but also 2 and 5 are related in the lower hexagram and the upper hexagram. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 and 5 are both projected on as well.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's a deep relationship between the 5s and the 2s. So
Okay, let's bring it back to the centers. What what else can you tell us about these centers? I think they like a I feel like they come with a lot of vulnerability and conditioning, as you
oh my
have
goodness.
mentioned before, right? So there's a
Really,
big opportunity for healing, I guess.
such a big opportunity. And this is where understanding that we are all conditioned. It's the nature of being a human being, that from the moment we're born, we're being conditioned. We call it culture, we call it family, right? So no one gets out of conditioning. So this is it. This is part of being a human being. So then from that place, you can then go, okay, how do I be wise about my conditioning? So I have a totally open ajna, the thinking mind. And again, this is never ending. You're constantly refining this. It's not like you learn it once and then you move on. It's like, it's constant. So I've been in this past couple months in a very deep understanding of how deeply my mind is stimulated, and how important it is for me to be very aware and careful of what I put into my mind, especially as we're in all of these changes all over the world, right? As we're in this great moment of emergency emergence, there's a lot of people pouring a lot of fear and panic into the field, where it's not good for my mind at all.
Yeah.
And not that it's good for any mind, right? But if you have a fixed mind, it's not going to hit you the same. So I had to have a really deep process of being with, who am I going to look to for information? How am I going to interact? Especially being in the States, right? Enough said, the States is quite a place right now. So, and it was very pivotal to me to be like, look, your mind is incredibly sensitive. You don't help anyone or anything by flooding your mind with all of this toxicity. I'm not designed for it. You
Right.
know, someone with a fixed mind, in a lot of ways, they're meant to be out there like hitting people with their thoughts, basically. It's like they can like do this.
They're the ones invading you with with
Yeah,
their
exactly. It's
stories,
like,
right?
and that's something where I really had to come to peace with and really deeply be like, okay, if I feel drawn, I will go listen to a person, an article, a podcast. But other than that, I'm going to trust spirit's going to bring me what I need to know to play my part, hopefully for the benefit of all beings, right? The
Mm,
sense of, but it's part of that. I got to be real about the vulnerability. And both my
mm,
parents had fixed minds. So also to bring in again family. So in this
mm,
journey of learning how deeply their minds impacted me. So really bit by bit over time, unpacking like, oh wait, that's mom's fears. Oh wait, that's how dad approaches it, right? And they're both 5s. So they have a very different gig. I'm a 1-3. So I'm much
mhm,
more in my own test tube. I get to come out and share my research, right? But I got conditioned to think I was supposed to be something else. And that was very painful. So again, the
mhm,
more you can recognize your conditioning. And so the great place for your listeners to start, very simply, I mean, complexly, but simply, look at your family of origin. What was held as values, right? Was it money? Was it education? Was it family? Were they very open-minded and international? Were they very closed-minded? And not from a judgment place, just true observation. And then look at your own centers. Look, where are you open? Where were you being conditioned? If you have the capacity, you can run free charts all over the place. You could look at your mom and dad's chart if you knew their birth info, and you can just, that is profound, profound.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
So that's a great place to start, right? And then if we want to go straight to marketing business application, look at your business model, look at your design, right? And so let's again take me, because I know my design. When I was in the 100% commission, financial, huge egos everywhere, it was not my strength at all. But once I let go, I've had this coaching and consulting business for 12 years. I'm just being me, bringing forward my research that's all about spirit, embodiment. These are my gates. How do you bring spirit into matter? How do you truly be aligned with the now in a powerful way and speak powerfully? So I just let go into it, and I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Happy. I don't feel like I'm swimming upstream. People just find me. It's great. So that's what I would love for them to hear as well. Is just, if you feel like you're stuck or suffering or difficult, man, there is a way. And it's not far or hard. It's actually right in front of you. And these centers
Yeah,
are,
and what I like about this is that we're not trying to, use human design as some kind of tactic that we're now gonna
uh,
go into psycho mode and, try to get, because we don't have access to our clients' human design, usually, at least not
right.
our prospects' human design. It's all about finding out more who you are,
Yes,
using
exactly.
that to your advantage and
Exactly.
being more authentic, being the real you, right? That's what this is all about. And for people listening, I think they probably understand by now that this is complex, like this is very complex. There's all these different layers. Um, and yeah, if you're interested in finding out more and going a bit deeper, well, Jen is coming back to us to the Humane Marketing Circle to do another workshop on June 4th. Jen, tell us a little bit what we're going to be doing on June 4th.
Great. So one of my favorite things to do with coaching groups such as Sarah's is that we'll have an introduction looking at the main theme, but then we're going to have 5 people that will have their charts in advance that are essentially on the hot seat. So we get to talk for 5 to 10 minutes with each person and look at the application so that you in real time can learn, you can see, and it's just fascinating how different each person is. Right. And then you hear their stories of how they've been applying it or what they're doing in their business. And it is so inspiring. Speaking of, inspiration, right? So
Mm,
hopefully you would leave that workshop both with an idea of how your own chart's working, looking at like where are the strengths, like where you're already playing to your strengths. And so you're like, great, just more of that. Then being able to go, oh, right, I'm trying to do this over here. Maybe I should not do that. And so I think we learn so much from each other. So
hmm.
to see multiple people, especially in this back-to-back way, it's like
Yeah.
magic. It really is like magic.
Exactly. Even if your chart doesn't get picked, it's like, oh wow, I have this one too. So
Yeah,
no
exactly.
wonder I'm doing this and I like this marketing tactic, or no wonder I don't like that one. So yeah,
Yes, exactly.
so much
Exactly.
wisdom coming out of that. So I can't wait to, yeah, to have you talk to us about open and or defined and undefined centers. But for people who can't make it to the workshop, please tell listeners where they can find you
Oh,
and
great.
your
Thank you.
newsletter that you're going to be
Yeah,
starting
that's
very
right.
soon.
Woohoo. Yeah. So my website's jenfreeman.co, JenFreeman.co. And I offer, one of the things is I call them the Decode Your Design sessions. And I've actually created my own method that includes human design, astrology, numerology, and something called the personality system. Because I really love meta context. I love looking at the real big picture and then helping give people a strategy of how to, because to me, how to live a happy life. It's like
Mm.
really loving, understanding your vehicle, understanding like who you are, what you're here to do. And and I also do ongoing coaching with people based on this kind of stuff as well. And one thing I want to say, just to I really hope from my heart to your heart, whoever's listening, as much as there's complexity, and there is a simplicity here, that if you only heard this, just understand there's a way that you are a radio station that's putting out, and there's a way that you are receiving. If you want to call it yin and yang, there's a fundamental dynamic going. And the more you can be curious about that, the more you're going to free yourself up from so much. So just even that alone could take you so far.
What I'll never forget from our reading is where you showed me, the push against and the resistance that creates. And yeah, that image keeps coming back. I'm like, don't push, don't push. It's not going to be easier. So
That's
just,
right.
yeah,
Oh,
just let
I feel
go.
you. I'm good. I'm so glad. And I really, it's a great joy. This whole thing Sarah and I are talking about, and we both share this as a value. I feel confident in it. We want to see a world that's happier and healthier, where people are more engaged. They're not stuck in their conditioning. They're bringing forward their unique gifts. They're able to really, it is going to be through business. It's going to be through how we connect with each other. It's just,
Right.
and that's part of both our passion. We want people to really know who they are and succeed and thrive everywhere in their lives. So,
Beautiful. So yeah, please join us, humane.marketing/workshop, and it's taking place on June 4th. Thanks so
awesome.
much for doing this little preview for our listeners here on the podcast, and I can't wait to see you. Thanks, Jen.
I look forward to it.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.